Okay, so very good afternoon to all of you. And when we're talking about photography, we will now discuss that how we can paint the universe of motion. See, photography is mostly about still images, but there was a small transition between still images to motion pictures, and how it all started is what we all will be discussing in today's class. So, actually, there's always a fixation towards understanding what is motion and how this motion works. So even if we go towards the early photographs um, of cave paintings, so the first humans who put paint on stone, what did they actually draw? They drew deer, buffaloes, horses, and they drew all the beasts men knew, and they painted them running. If I can show you this, these are some of the old cave paintings. So in most of the paintings, they wanted to show all these animals and humans uh, in, as if they were running. So it started on a cave wall in France, some maybe 40,000 years ago, with animals that seemed to move uh, with their hind quarters planted and torsos rigid, and their front legs stiff and raised ever so off the ground, something like that. This. So these Paleolithic artists were primitive, of course, but for thousands and thousands of years to follow. Neither the ancient Greeks nor the Japanese masters, nor even the best of the people who are painters could actually make a real image of a motion and of animal in motion. So there's a very famous painter. He was a uh, painter of. So this is another painting of horse. So there was a very famous painter called Jean Louis Maisonneuve. I don't know whether I'm pronouncing it correct or not. If somebody knows French, that person can correct me. He was a French painter, and he's primarily known for paintings of horses. But even he couldn't seem to understand how to draw an animal in motion. So even he was confused, and he also tried it for a very very long time. The first humans who put paint on stone couldn't find it. The Germans couldn't break the Greeks, the Japanese, the famous painters. Nobody could actually paint the actual motion which in real life animals go through, and especially horses. And even as humans increasingly spent their lives around horses, the greatest artists, the talent of their time, drew them running with all four legs splayed as if mounted onto a rocker. वो लकड़ी की काठी होता है ना, बिल्कुल उसके जैसा कि अगर पीछे के जमीन पे है तो आगे के उठे हुए, अगर आगे के जमीन पे है तो पीछे के पैर हवा में है. So man has always sought to understand the natural world. So if for no other reason than to bend it to our will, but an invisible life existed in the motion of the horse, which our eyes couldn't see, hidden from our eyes, and thus from human understanding. Until 1870s. What happened in 1870s? So there was a man who founded Stanford University. Anybody who knows who founded Stanford University? You know Stanford University, very famous university. Anybody who knows who founded it? Okay, so until 1870s, when the man who founded Stanford University, and so, okay, I'm giving you this homework, you have to give me the name of this person. His second name is Stanford. What is his first name?
Ma'am, Leland Stanford.
Correct, correct. Lenin Stanford. And this person wanted to know that wanted to understand this mystery of motion, and he became obsessed with this mystery so much so that he hired a photographer called Edward Muybridge. I request all of you to kindly come on time or join from official email IDs. Otherwise, I need to go back and admit you. So he hired this person, Edward Muybridge. Why? Because he was obsessed with this mystery and he wanted to unlock this mystery. Then what happened? Then actually the story built up from there. And actually I'll show you the photograph of Muybridge. He is Edward Muybridge, right? Okay. So uh, there is a story behind that. It is said that Mr. Stanford uh, was obsessed to know the story of motion. So he hired this photographer and he said that do you think that you can break this puzzle? And he said no, it's not possible. Can't you click the photograph of a horse when he's running? And Maybritt said, no, I can't, because it really need a very, very high shutter speed. And I don't have access to such a great shutter speed. But later, they came to the consent that together they will try to figure out this mystery, the mystery of galloping horses. And Maybritt uh, did actually solve this mystery, and it became one of his greatest achievements. Um, what happened? Actually, in the earliest years, photography rode an unsure line between science and art. This was an art, definitely, but to create this art, one had to work on a scientific front as well. It transported facts of the world to the public. It offered very beautiful and pretty images. Few people knew what to do with it, but Maybridge actually changed that. So as I said, that there was a legend goes that in 1872, the Leland Stanford asked the British photographer Edward Muybridge, who had become famous on the west coast of his stunning photographs. He has taken very amazing landscape photographs. Therefore, he was becoming famous photographer because he was taking beautiful landscape photographs. So he asked him about the question, can he do that? And the Maybridge told him that he was crazy and no camera shutter could move that fast, but later accepted the challenge to produce one that could. To tackle Stanford's dilemma of whether horses indeed engaged in unsupported transit during the throttling gait. Actually, what happened? Mr. Stanford believed that when these horses are running, at one moment, all the four legs of the horses are in the air. This he used to call it unsupported transit. Uh, i- in an academic world, he used this terminology, unsupported transit. So he wanted Maybrish to click some photographs like that so that he could show it as a proof to people, to the universe. So Maybrish began experimenting with a with a bank of 12 cameras with tripwires. Who is entering so late? Just a second. So this is for everybody who is entering late, that I already start my class around 5-10 minutes late so that everybody could enter. I wait for all of you. Either you come on time, or please enroll with your college IDs, college official IDs. I cannot just stop my class in between every time and go back and keep admitting you, because it's keep making the sound of ting 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 ting, right? So please, we are in a very different sphere. We all need to abide by the situations we are in. Okay, so where was I? I was telling you that Muybridge, actually, how he managed to click this photograph. So he was another important photographer. Uh, Stiglitz was also part of it. So this is what he did. He actually, I'll show you a video as well. What he actually did, he used various cameras, and 12 he placed 12 cameras, and he with and all the cameras were attached to a trip of wires, such that the horse moving down the racetrack, there was a racetrack, here we have cameras, so the moment horse runs there, जहाँ जहाँ हॉर्स जा रहा है वहाँ वहाँ के कैमरास जो हैं वो क्लिक करते जा रहे हैं, सो दैट जहाँ पे भी हॉर्स आए वहाँ पे की photograph click हो जाए. So Stanford supplied the horse and Seri Garden, as well as a track on his estate in Palo Alto in California, and where this experiment took place. And what happened that in same year, Muybridge, this Stanford started working with Muybridge started working with Stanford. However, Muybridge was 43 years old, and at that time he got married to a local shop girl, and this girl was 21 years old, and the name of this girl was Flora Stone. But what everything started collapsing in his personal life after he got married with this girl. This was a very unfortunate chain of events started happening in this artist's personal life. And perhaps due to Muybridge's frequent absence to pursue his photographic studies, because he used to be in Stanford most of the time, clicking and experimenting with the camera and horses, this young girl, Stone, began an affair with another drama critic. And the name of the drama critic was Harry Larkins. Harry Larkins, they, everybody, we all are admitting so late. So Harry Larkin and Miss Stone got into a relationship, and Muybridge discovered this betrayal. So he found some accounts of letters, etc., and they also had a small child, of 7-month-old child, and he couldn't face this betrayal. So Muybridge traveled to Larkins and actually shot him in cold blood killing, which killed him instantly. Definitely, there were trials. He was put behind the bars. Muybridge was put behind the bars. And the subsequent trial, Muybridge pleaded insanity caused by head trauma over an earlier stagecoach crash he had suffered in maybe 1860s, which witnesses testified left him erratic and unpredictable. And amazingly, the jury dismissed his claim of insanity but judged the case as homicide, letting Muybridge walk free, and his work, which was interrupted because of all this, uh, and later, after many years, he started it. He exiled himself in Central America, and only returned back to continue his work in Stanford in around 1877. So this what all happened in his personal life. Now, what he started doing in 1877. In 1877, at a track, can you see a track here in this photograph? अगर आप ध्यान से देखेंगे तो आपको एक ट्रैक दिखाई देगा नीचे जहाँ पे ये आपको this is a track on which horse used to run. So at a track in San Francisco, Muybridge strung a thread across the dirt at horse chest height. I think you can see that as well. दिख रहा है ये एक छोटा सा इन्होंने धागा वहाँ पे भी लगा दिया था. उससे क्या होता था, जैसे ही हॉर्स भागना शुरू करता था वैसे ही वो अटैच था आपके कैमरे के शटर से, वो शटर का ट्रिगर जो है वो फोटोग्राफ को क्लिक कर लेता. So Stanford had funded Muybridge's work for years, and this was their most meaningful trial yet. So when Stanford's horse trotted down the track at 40 feet per second, Muybridge was ready with his camera. And it was that year that the first succeeded in capturing an image of one of Stanford's horses. And this one horse was named as Occident, with all four legs off the ground. I again request all of you to please join in time. So what are you asking, Ishika? Ma'am, can you please repeat what you were explaining? There was some problem in my network connection. Don't worry, I'm recording all these things, but anyways, I can repeat what I was saying. I was saying that after so many years, Muybridge started his experiment, and once he started his experiment in Stanford, and this is for the first time that he succeeded in capturing an image of one of the horses, and the name of the horse was Occident. And what he clicked, he could click that all the four legs of the horse were off the ground. Yet the photographer soon faced another setback. ये तो आपने क्लिक कर लिया, पर फिर एक दिक्कत आ गई. ये जो फोटोग्राफ क्लिक की थी उसके negatives were lost, and leaving only woodcut reproduction that weren't widely accepted. So the whatever image was there, it was not that clear, and people did not accepted it as a proof. So not to be discouraged, he set out to create a camera with faster shutter speed, capable of capturing much shorter intervals of motion, and eventually enabling him to record a previously unheard of duration of 2 millisecond. An astonishing technical achievement. By saying so, what do I mean? I mean that every camera has a shutter, and in a manual camera you can fix the speed of a shutter, that for how many seconds the shutter will open and after how many seconds it will close. So in earlier photographs, these shutter speeds were very slow. So they used to open and then shut. So anything which moves during this time when the shutter was open will get a blurred image. So if you wanted to capture a moving horse, you had to have a shutter speed to be very high. Very high shutter speed. The duration should be very less for the time it opens. It should shut immediately. तभी तो वो जैसे ही वो horse भाग रहा है, भागने की फौरन फोटोग्राफ को क्लिक कर लेगा. If the horse is running and the shutter is open for a very long time, then the image of what we will see the horses here, everywhere. So it will be all blurred. We will not be able to identify what has happened. So when Muybridge began his work at Stanford's horses, photography had barely been around 50 years. And the craft was so sensitive that even a slight breeze on leaves in a landscape or a shift of a neck in a portrait could ruin the picture. A camera shutter speed determines how long its exposure to light, which means anything, anything moving while it's open can look blurred. Before Maybridge's photographs exposed light to the film by removing the lens cap with their hands. Actually, एक लेंस होता था, लेंस के आगे कैप होती थी. They used to remove the lens cap with their hand and then jamming it back on it. So वो लोग जो है ये शटर उन्होंने अपना मैनुअल शटर बना के रखा हुआ है. But this is why most people in the photograph at the time of earlier times look like a zombie. They बिल्कुल एकदम इस तरह से बैठे होते थे. क्यों बैठे होते थे वो लोग इस तरह से? बिकॉज अगर थोड़ा सा भी हिल जाएंगे तो फोटोग्राफ खराब हो जाएगी. But in early 1870s, Muybridge invented mechanical shutters. A shutter that used a trigger and rubber spring to snap to plants and shut in front of the lens at 1,000th of a second. And this is exactly the same technology which we are still using in our manual DSLR cameras. The photo Muybridge took was completely disappointing, although, and in earlier times. But later, with higher shutter speed, he could achieve what he wanted to. So, in order to understand motion, Muybridge needed to separate a movement into its parts. So, what happened? अभी उन्होंने फोटोग्राफ तो कैप्चर कर ली, जैसा कि आपको मैं इस फोटो में दिखाती हूँ. फोटोग्राफ इस तरह की कैप्चर कर ली. And the name given was the horse in motion. And you can see in first photograph एक पैर नीचे है, फिर धीरे धीरे ऊपर, और ये सारे पैर ऊपर हैं. पर ये सारे पैर ऊपर है वाली इमेज तो एक ही इमेज है ना. आपने मोशन वाली फोटोग्राफ तो क्रिएट कर ली, पर आपने मोशन दिखाया तो नहीं. मोशन दिख नहीं रहा है. हमें फोटोग्राफ्स दिखाई दे रही हैं, पर फोटोग्राफ मोशन में नहीं दिखाई दे रही. But even though in 1878 that he was finally able to complete his study, the horse in motion, and this gave him the credit of the fastest shutter speed. And Muybridge demonstrated conclusively that a horse's legs, which had been represented in art incorrectly for thousands of years, did in fact all leave the ground at the same time while in a drought. Even traditional representation that showed a running horse with its first long extended foreground and back legs, कहीं ना कोई ज़मीन पे होता ही था. Muybridge revealed that in fact, when all four legs leave the ground, they gather near the middle of the horse's body. जैसा इस इमेज में दिया हुआ है. See, he could prove that. He could prove that with his photographs. Okay, so let me show you what he actually showed. आपको ये दिखाने के लिए मुझे ये बंद करना पड़ेगा. I have kept some of the videos ready for you. Are you all with me? Are you with me?
Yes, ma'am.
पक्का सब लोग? क्योंकि मुझे
Yes, ma'am.
समझ भी आ रहा है जो मैं बता रही हूँ.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now watch this. YouTube का पेज दिखाई दिया?
Yes, ma'am.
By definition, a motion picture is a series of pictures projected onto a screen, creating the illusion of movement. By the 1800s, humans had discovered photography, projection, and motion. We just hadn't put them together. Then, a guy called Eadweard Muybridge changed everything. He set up 24 cameras linked to tripwires to take photographs of a horse galloping. He developed and later projected the images onto a screen using his invention, the zoopraxiscope. The result was 2 seconds of movie history. Here it is, the first motion picture ever made. Get your popcorn.
Okay. Just a second. So, what did you find? क्या देखा आपको? आपने क्या देखा? आपने एक मोशन पिक्चर देखी? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
आप सबको एक मोशन दिखाई दिया. So this is what finally Muybridge could achieve. पर ये जो आपको मोशन दिखाई दे रहा है ये सिर्फ फोटोग्राफ्स क्लिक करने से नहीं आया. इसके लिए इन्होंने एक और चीज की थी. Let me share my PowerPoint screen again with you. This is called zoopraxiscope. Zoopraxiscope. So to better showcase his discoveries, Muybridge invented the zoopraxiscope in 1879. This is a device that is credited as the first moving picture projector, operating with rotating glass discs. The zoopraxiscope projected images onto each other in rapid succession, created an illusion of movement. Okay, I'll again stop sharing this and we'll show you. See this. Can you see something? Can you see some images of zoopraxiscope?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So this is a similar image which is giving you an illusion of movement. When I'm saying illusion, that these images are not really moving, your eyes are feeling that they are moving. Though the earliest interactions required the images to be painted as silhouettes onto the glass, later incarnations would use images printed onto the discs photographically, inching ever close to the first cinematic projector of the 1890s में जो बना. क्या हुआ? आपको एक और इमेज हम दिखाते हैं. एक सेकेंड. Is this the? Yeah. So हमारे जो zoopraxiscope है उसके अंदर बहुत सारे इमेजेस डाल दी जाती हैं और वो इमेजेस जो हैं अब उनको इन रोटेशन चलाया जाता है. और मैं आपको एक और इमेज दिखाती हूँ zoopraxiscope के लिए. Don't worry about the sound because it's just music. So this is the disc on which different images are put in. These images can be even painted. ये हाथ से painted images हैं. और उसके बाद एक डिस्क के ऊपर इनको चलाया जाता है जिससे आपको ऐसा फील होता है कि ये मूव कर रहे हैं. आपने बहुत सारी इमेजेस ले ली इस एनिमल की, और फिर उसने आपने ज़ूओप्रेस्कोप में इसको कट कर करके अलग से लगाया और उसको घुमाया, तो उसके मूवमेंट से आपको ये दिखाई दिया कि ये मूव कर रही है. See, this was Google created a doodle on his 182nd birthday, Muybridge's birthday.
Ma'am,
Yeah,
ma'am, it's just like that. Someone drew pictures, a lot of pictures on a copy, and they start to turn it over on a.
exactly. Yes, जैसे आपने वो तारे ज़मीन पे देखा था ना, उसमें लगता है कि there is
Exactly,
a
ma'am.
sense of movement. अगर आपने कभी देखा हो कि अगर एक तरफ आपने एक बर्ड बनाया, दूसरी तरफ आपने केज बनाया, उसको पंखे के नीचे रखा और उसको मूव कराया, तो आपको लगता है कि बर्ड इज इनसाइड द केज, राइट? सो दिस इज कॉल्ड परसिस्टेंस ऑफ विजन. इल्यूजन है ये कि वो मूव कर रहा है. पर ज़ूओप्रेक्सोस्कोप में क्या हुआ कि आपने उसको प्रोजेक्ट करके दुनिया को दिखाया. हुँ? आपका जो इल्यूजन है वो तो यही है, पर आप दुनिया को दिखा रहे हो प्रोजेक्ट करके यही चीज़. तो जो आज का GIF है, ये कुछ उसके जैसा ही था, इफ यू सी इट इन दैट वे. और एक ही इमेज रिपीटेटिवली आपको दिखाई देती जाती है, दिखाई देती जाती है. और इनका जो ज़ूओप्रेक्सोस्कोप था वो कुछ ऐसा दिखता था. दिस इज हाउ इट यूज्ड टू look like. And let me show you another video of it. आप ये ज़ूओप्रेक्सोस्कोप के ऊपर एक वीडियो देखिए इनकी, which is a 4-minute long video, and you will get to know how he created things.
Eadweard Muybridge was a landscape, urban and travel photographer. He was commissioned by Leland Stanford, an entrepreneur and horse breeder, to devise ways of using the camera to analyze the movement of horses scientifically. In 1878, Muybridge published his first series of sequence photographs taken at Stanford's Palo Alto farm in California. Muybridge shot many sequences of animals and humans using his innovative motion photography process. He became well known for his work, but the movement portrayed was so new to his audience that not everybody believed his pictures were true. To help demonstrate his photographic findings during his lectures, Muybridge invented the zoopraxiscope. This projected his images in sequence and gave them the illusion of movement. However, to prepare the photographs for projection, Muybridge needed to transfer them to a glass disc, and this was no easy process because the projector had a limitation. If Muybridge used it to project the images onto the screen without treating them first, the image would look squashed up and distorted. Muybridge had to counter this effect by re-photographing them at an angle to make them appear wider, and bending the photographs in the opposite direction to the distortion caused by the circular disc. The re-photographed prints were laid out in a circle to create a paper guide disc. A specialist artist then copied the images painstakingly onto a 16-inch glass disc using paint. The zoopraxiscope discs were a great success, helping Muybridge prove the accuracy of his photography and leading to a contract at the University of Pennsylvania, where he took many thousands of sequence photographs. As time went on, more detail went into the projected images, often with several different sequences on the same disc. This process of combining figures
would not have been possible had the original photographs been used, and gave Muybridge great freedom in creating imaginative scenes with many moving figures. For his appearance at the 1893 World's Fair in Chicago, which showcased many new inventions and popular trends, Muybridge also created new discs, in colour. These were made in a similar way, up to a point. But when the photographic montage was complete on paper, the process changed. Instead of copying it directly onto glass, the artist made a paper drawing of the sequence. This was signed by Muybridge and photographed. A large glass negative was produced, and then a large glass positive which the artist, Erwin Faber, would enrich with vivid colour, and the finished disc was cut out of the glass sheet, ready for projection. It was the silhouette discs that were used for most of Muybridge's lectures, even though the later discs were more colourful. But with the emergence of cinema, these discs remained almost unknown, signalling the end of Muybridge's extraordinary experiments with making images move. Nonetheless, they are truly beautiful objects to see in motion today.
All right. So, could you understand what was shown there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So, what kind and how he used this instrument to actually show the illusion of motion picture, but with help of photograph and with help of paints and brushes. So this animated images, we can say these are animated images, actually lasted only a few seconds, as you could all see. And they do look like something like today's GIFs. And it's really impossible to view Muybridge's work through a zoopraxiscope today. But since many of his photos have been turned into GIF, we can again see Muybridge's art as he did. And in his photo grids, an action begins and ends. But in constant repeated motion, the action spills into a circle of infinite motions and movement. You all could very easily understand that. So then, after doing all this, and before he retired to England in 1900s, where he would occasionally lecture until his death in 1904, he actually died because of cancer. Muybridge woved audiences at the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago in 1893. So he showcased this zoopraxiscope in a museum, and he called it as a zoopraxographical hall. और वहाँ पे इसके पैसे लिए जाते थे, so it was a commercial movie theater, and people used to come and see how images are moving. And Muybridge not only used this for painting, etc. He used it for various reasons too, and which contributed in research, such as he did this to understand the movement of animals, different animals, movement of to study the anatomy of human body. So he clicked photographs of several naked men, women walking, climbing the ladder, a child crawling, etc. A bodybuilder just taking weights, and there's a page as well where you can see all of his locomotions which he has created. So it has around 40-50 slides on which he has done such experiments, and these experiments are recognized in the history of anatomy, in the studies related to any kind of movement or motion. So by then, when all these experiments were done, by Maybridge, and in a way he actually started a commercial movie theater as well by Zoopraxographical Hall. And by then but on the other side, a new generation of inventors, such as Louis Prince, William Dixon, and Thomas Edison among them, they had developed competing motion picture projectors that outpaced the zoopraxiscope, and each of them owed a large part of their success to the fact that Maybridge, with his persistence and his patents, could achieve. So this was a very, very big achievement. And this was a transition between a photograph, a still photograph, to a motion image. And he actually uh, kind of invented the the shutter speed with the high shutter speed equipments. And he was a very, very important person in the history of photography. So I hope you liked the session, you learned something from it. Any question, anything you want to know?